enormous Supreme Court decision came down this morning. Roe v. Wade overturned. Planned Parenthood v. Casey overturned. 6-3 decision. It has been decades in the making. And we have to now turn to our co-host, our good friend, Clay Travis, who has family obligations today that have kept him away from the mic for the 3 hours of the show. But he is calling in now because I know a lot of you wanted to hear his take on what all this means. Clay, first, audience has been asking, how are you doing?
It's a tough day. And by the way, I'm on the road. We're pulled off here on the side of the road. So, cell phone reception is always a tough situation like this. But, he was 62 years old, listened to the Rush Limbaugh show for over 30 years. His wife and his daughter did a phenomenal eulogy, which she's young. To be in that position where you're eulogizing your father or your mother is something that is incredibly difficult for anybody to do. They came up and they said they had heard from so many people after we talked about it because so many of his friends listened as well and had been fans of the show for a long time. So it was tough. And I think, in addition to the daughter, my uncle is still alive, over 90, and to hear at over 90 that one of your sons has died totally unexpectedly is just, a brutal thing, I think, for anybody to have to experience. So I appreciate it. I had so many people reach out to me on behalf of so many people from the show who were listening and have been through this. And obviously we are, in many ways, a big family, all of us together. And so that's been tough. And that's why I wasn't on today. Obviously, the news broke, and it broke right as I was going in, basically, for the funeral. But my thoughts, first of all, on the news is, Buck, and I'm curious what you think, but I'm extremely disappointed in John Roberts not signing on to the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I know he supported the Mississippi law and concurred there, but then did not sign on. And my concern is, looking forward, we've had a lot of time to discuss all of this. My biggest concern is all of these justices in the conservative majority have a monster target on their backs still. And I just think it's an awful, for someone like John Roberts, who claims that he cares so much about the legitimacy of the court, Buck, for him not to be willing to stand up for the legitimacy of the court and say, hey, we're going to make this a 6-3 decision so that all the nut jobs out there, and we already know this tried to happen with Brett Kavanaugh, so that someone's not trying to kill a justice to change the outcome of this case. To me, I'm disgusted with John Roberts for not joining this majority and making it 6-3. And then bigger picture, Buck, I think we've discussed a lot of implications and ramifications already, but it is, to me, hey, if you truly believe in the democratic process in the United States, then right now you get the opportunity to make a choice about what you think the law should be as it pertains to abortion in this country. Whatever state you're in, whatever community you live in, you now have the opportunity to make those decisions. And it's the ultimate democratic process. The court deciding on their own was the anti-democratic process. So to me, this is beyond a shadow of a doubt a moment for democracy to triumph, for us to have hard conversations about what the law should be all over this country, and to hopefully reach a moment of realization as a country in the democratic process, as should have existed 50 years ago. And then the last thing I would say, and then I'm curious what you would say about all this, is, will we have this violence, right? Are we going to have the mostly peaceful protests breaking out all over this country tonight? I'm going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. I know you're down, I believe, still in South Florida. People are listening to us all over the country. Are they confident that their cities and states are going to be calm tonight, or are we going to see a reprisal of the summer of 2020 when everything came undone?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, Clay, about Roberts being unwilling to go along with the overturning of Roe. I'm less concerned about the long-term implications for that, although clearly the tension around the court is, and it is also a little bit confusing, I think, for folks, because you hear, well, it's a 6-3 decision, so he's with Roberts is with the majority on the Mississippi law, so everyone's reporting this as a 6-3 decision, but Roberts did his own separate concurrence to state that he would not have gone along with the overturning of Roe specifically. He would have done it in perhaps a more phased process. I've always thought that he just lacks internal fortitude and is an institutionalist above all else. But overall, I mean, the impact here is Roe is gone, so that's obviously hugely momentous. And, now I wonder, because these two things are tied together, right, Clay? The midterms coming up and your concern, my concern, everyone's concern about riots, violence, anything like that. We had Ann Coulter on before, and I asked her about this. I do think, and I wanted your take on this, there's there has been some violence against pro-life pregnancy centers and other things, but it's been vandalism, and it hasn't been on the scale of, say, BLM riots that we saw in 2020. Do you think that may come from this decision? But also, how does the recognition of the imminent elections that Democrats, it's not a good look to burn down buildings usually, right? I mean, they got away with it in 2020, but Trump was president and the left was insane. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, so I that's such an important question as we head into the weekend. And you and I have been discussing about when this opinion was going to come down. And I kind of floated the idea, I don't know if I said it on the air just in our conversation, that maybe they would hold it into the long holiday weekend of July 4th. They obviously released it on a Friday going into a weekend. I don't know. We had this Supreme Court leak. And, Buck, the Supreme Court leak obviously did not work. And it may, I hope, have alleviated some of the tension because people have had weeks to be angry about this decision. And I also think Democrats have recognized that this isn't their huge saving grace when everything is going wrong, because the base of the Democrat Party did not seem to be super motivated like I think a lot of Democrats thought and hoped they would be. So given the fact that we've had 5 or 6 weeks to come to grips with the fact that this opinion was coming down, I like to think that maybe we have alleviated the overall tension that could lead to an explosive protest. But the other part of me thinks so much of this protest felt manufactured and organized. And to your point, Buck, the party in power bears more of the brunt of the blame. But I'm still concerned that in some places there may be an incentive to create violence. And then there are lots of people out there who are not political in any nature. Then when violence occurs, they take it as an opportunity to riot, to loot, to plunder. And it doesn't take very many people in order for all hell to break loose, as everyone listening to us right now knows, who lived through that summer of extreme violence in 2020. So the other thing I would say, too, associated with this, Buck, is we still don't know who the leaker was. And I still want to find out how that happened for purposes of the court's legitimacy. And also I'll circle back around to go Jen Psaki on everybody here to what you said about Roberts as an institutionalist. I agree with that to a certain extent. But if you are an institutionalist, your number one goal should be to protect the institution. And when you have attempted assassination attempts going on against your conservative justices and you're allowing this to be a 5-4 decision, look, when you get to be in your 60s and 70s, as I should know and everybody else out there should know, though, things can happen unexpectedly in terms of health. And so when this decision is hanging by the thread of one justice, and we know already a left-wing lunatic went to Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's house with the express intent to kill him so this law would not become the law of the land, between now and the midterms, Buck, Joe Biden theoretically would have the ability to replace a conservative justice if a opening emerged. I don't like the fact that John Roberts has allowed that same incentive to continue to exist, in that if someone is killed, and I hate to even have to talk about it, but coming off of an assassination attempt, I think it would be failure if we didn't. If someone is killed, this opinion, given that it's a 5-4 opinion, could flip. To me, if you're an institutionalist like John Roberts, he had an obligation to support his institution and make this a 6-3 decision so this choice doesn't hang on the heartbeat of one justice. And right now, that's all it does. And there are enough crazy people, as we all know, who could be motivated. There's already been one to try to take up arms over this issue. I think John Roberts failed the court. I think he failed the country. And I think he failed his own institution most prominently by failing to sign on and make this a legitimate 6-3 decision. As you mentioned, a lot of people are confused because it's 6-3 upholding the Mississippi law, but it's only 5-4 in terms of overturning Roe v. Wade.
Right. We're speaking to Clay Travis, co-host of this show, but he's dealing with family today and was at a funeral this morning, so we want him to call in to share with all of you his thoughts. Clay, well, one more thing before I know you got to get back to taking care of the fam. Former President Donald Trump, 45, put out this statement, Save America, Save America President Donald J. Trump. Today's decision, which is the biggest win for life in a generation, along with other decisions that have been announced recently, were only made possible because I delivered everything as promised, including nominating and getting 3 highly respected and strong constitutionalists confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. It was my great honor to do so. I did not cave to the radical left Democrats, their partners in the fake news, or the rhinos, who are the true but silent enemy of the people. He goes on a bit more. But Clay, first of all, it's so Trump, right? But most pro-life president by the numbers, by the reality, in my lifetime, I think you'd have to say, in our lifetime.
When you look at what Trump did in getting 3 young-ish, highly qualified justices onto the court, it is maybe the most consequential presidency since, I think it's fair to say, Ronald Reagan in terms of advocating for conservative views. And I think if you had told anybody, Buck, when Donald Trump came down that escalator in Trump Tower and announced that he was running for president back in, I guess it would have been now, the summer of 15 or whatever. I can barely even keep up. I guess it would have been the summer of 15, basically, when he announced that he was going to be running for president. If you or I had said, hey, he's going to win, and followed it up by saying, and he's going to be the most successful president in terms of transforming the court and advocating for conservative views in most of our lives, maybe, frankly, almost anyone's life, even going back past before Reagan. I don't think anybody would have believed it, but I think the consequences are here. Look, you look at John Roberts, he had no spine. And when he has been faced with tough decisions, he's tended to worry about what everybody in Washington, D.C. thought. Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, they all were Trump appointees, and they all came in and delivered. They did not waver. They didn't go suitor. And conservatives have been hoping for choices like these for generations. I think you have to give credit to the Federalist Society. People may not pay a lot of attention to them, but they made the choice that they were going to vet the justices and vet judges and get fully qualified constitutionalists on the bench. And they have had a transformative impact on the federal judiciary. And given how crazy Democrats have gone, that formative impact has been transformative, but also incredibly protective of constitutionalist ideals. So I wouldn't have bet on it, but my goodness, what an incredible legacy for Trump, even if he only ever serves one term as president.
This is kind of fun. I get to say, everyone be sure to listen in to Clay Travis on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show on Monday, which is the show that he co-hosts with me every day. But Clay,
you and I usually worry about cell phone signals. Did I sound okay? That's what I was most concerned about calling in on my cell phone.
Nah, man, crystal clear. All good to go. Look, thoughts and prayers to you and yours. Appreciate you sharing your insight on a day when you have a lot of family stuff to tend to. And obviously you and I will be back in the cockpit on Monday, my friend. Thanks so much.
No doubt. I appreciate everybody out there. Thank you for all the condolences and all of the incredibly heartfelt expressions. And I'm glad that I could talk to everybody here, back to the family now. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and I hope we actually don't have any rioting, looting, plundering to have to worry about all throughout the country.
Amen to that. Talk to you Monday, my friend. Thanks, Clay.